Seit inzwischen 18 Jahren mache ich Persönlichkeitsentwicklung. Und die letzten 2 Jahre hat mich ein Mensch ganz besonders begleitet. Und er hat mich sehr, sehr inspiriert und mich selbst dazu angeleitet, ein noch selbstbestimmteres Leben zu führen. Er hat inzwischen viele, viele tausend andere Menschen inspiriert. Er hält jedes Jahr etliche Seminare. Über 10.000 Menschen besuchen allein 2019 seine Seminare und sie sind immer ausverkauft. Er hat es geschafft, spirituelle Lehre und Wissenschaft zusammenzuführen. Er selbst ist Neurowissenschaftler und ich freue mich sehr, dass er heute da ist, Dr. Joe Dispenza. Thanks for having you here.
Thank you so much for having me, Alexander.
Dr. Joe, you said you are driven by the conviction that each of us has the potential for greatness and unlimited abilities. What do you mean by that?
Well, my interest is helping people to get beyond their own personal limitations. And I think that's relative to the individual. But after the last 10 years, I'm absolutely certain that there's a formula that we have researched and understood that if people begin to apply the formula and make inward changes, that if they get really good at it, they'll begin to see effects in their outer world. And so it's something that I think it has to be done methodically, and it has to be done step by step. And we're making great advances in our community, and common people are starting to do the uncommon, and that's exciting to me.
What are you doing in your seminars? You're talking a lot about energy, the quantum field, the information field. What is about these topics?
Well, I think that the old model of the way we view not only the human being, but the nature of reality is antiquated. It's old. It's based on principles that are solid to a certain degree, but there's more to reality than we think. So if you combine quantum physics with a little neuroscience, with a little neuroendocrinology, a little psychoneuroimmunology, epigenetics, all of those sciences really give us the opportunity to explore possibility. And I think that when you put all of those pieces together, the knowledge in terms of a model shows that mind and matter are very closely connected. And so then if mind has an effect on matter, how do we get good at beginning to notice effects in the work that we do? So knowledge then becomes the forerunner to experience. And I think science now is the contemporary language of mysticism. And I think science is what demystifies the mystical. So it gives people the opportunity then to understand what they're doing and why. And when you understand the what and the why, the how gets easier. And I think that this is a time in history where it's not enough to know. I think this is a time in history to know how. And information is so readily available, Alexander, to so many people that we don't need an authority, a priest, a teacher, any authority to give us information. We have access to information. So in an age of information, ignorance is a choice. So people are becoming empowered by knowledge. And every time you learn something new, you have a greater sense of awareness about yourself and the world around you. And awareness is consciousness, and you can't have consciousness without energy. So there's a change in energy that's going on the planet, and people are more informed. And it's an exciting time because they're no longer looking at reality in the same way. They're starting to question, well, if this person has healed themselves of a chronic health condition by changing their thoughts, their feelings, their lifestyle, and I see evidence that many other people are doing it, well, the old model then no longer has a foundation. So it will work for people who need something outside of them to change their inner state. But this new model of reality is about changing your inner state independent of anything outside of you. And that gives people a tremendous amount of power. And we're seeing results because of it.
You said a lot of interesting words. To get more in detail, what is the quantum field? What is the information field? What's the energy you're talking about? What is it in detail?
Well, Einstein and Planck began experimenting with subatomic particles. And what they started to do is agitate or put energy into an electron and disturb it. And they expected that electron to fall towards the nucleus of the atom, just like an apple would fall towards the center of the earth from a tree. And that's a Newtonian model of reality. If you know the position and you know the distance, for the most part, you can determine how long it's going to take to hit the ground. It's very predictable. But when they disturbed the electrons, that's not what happened. They didn't behave like the very large planets and apples in the objective world. The electrons gained energy and lost energy, gained energy, lost energy, and they started appearing and disappearing. And when they started to look to measure the electron, everywhere they looked for it, it appeared. So all of a sudden, there was this kind of relationship between mind and matter, so implicitly connected that it's difficult to separate the two. So then, in the quantum model of reality, you have matter, which is the nucleus of the atom. You have electrons, photons appearing and disappearing. But you also have what's called a wave function, which is that invisible cloud of energy that's all potential. The electron could appear anywhere. And so matter is both a particle and a wave. It's both matter and energy. So then, if subjective mind has an effect on the objective world, the next question is, why is it only working for the very tiny, like subatomic particles, and not for the very large, like events in our lives? Well, the question is, maybe we just have to get better at observing and paying attention. So the quantum field then is this invisible field of energy and information that exists beyond this space and time. There's no bodies there, there's no people, there's no matter, there's no things, there's no places, and there isn't even time. It's one infinite field, a fertile field, a void of everything physical or material, but where all possibilities exist. Now, to the materialists, they would say, well, I can't see it, but just because you can't see something doesn't mean it doesn't exist. So then, I think most people spend the majority of their life focusing their attention on matter. And when we react to dangers or threats in our lives, when we turn on the very primitive nervous system that puts us in survival because we're under stress, we narrow our focus more on matter. And so we habituate. We get stuck in keeping all of our attention on our bodies, all of our attention on all the elements, the people and things and places in our outer world. And we're always trying to anticipate or predict the future based on the past. And that's the world of Newtonian physics. And in this realm of space and time, in order for us to get what we want, we have to move our body through space from one point of consciousness to another, and it takes time. So now, we only have a certain number of resources when we're matter trying to change matter. We have to compete, we fight for it, we control, we manipulate, we try to predict it, we force it, because we're matter trying to change matter. And people spend their whole lives living in lack, living in separation, and trying to get what they want. So then how do we then begin to use the field as a way to begin to produce greater effects on the nature of reality? Because if you look at some of the science, we would think that matter is emitting a field. There's a radiant field around matter, and that's true. But in effect, it's not matter that's emitting the field, it's the field that's actually slowing down in frequency and creating matter. So then if you create from the field, you should be able to produce greater effects in matter. So then how do we do that? Well, this quantum...
Because it sounds easy.
Yes.
But it sounds easy in theory, but how is it possible to get in that state, to get connection to the field?
Yes, and that's what I'm going to talk about right now. So then, our research shows, and you have been in some of our events, that where you place your attention is where you place your energy. So if all of your attention is invested in this three-dimensional reality, you got to play by the rules of Newtonian physics, and it's going to take time.
Reality.
This three-dimensional reality. But what if you could take all of your attention off your body, all your attention off all the people in your life, all the things, all the places, and time itself? As you begin to change your attention and disinvest your attention out of this three-dimensional reality, then in a sense, then, if you did that properly, not only would you become pure consciousness, you would be an awareness in a void of anything physical. Now you're moving closer to this field. And that field, called the quantum field, you can't experience with your senses. It's a reality that exists beyond your senses. You could only experience it with your awareness. And that field is the realm of consciousness, of frequency, of energy, of thought, of possibility. And so then when a person can linger in this place as an awareness without a face, without a body, without a name, without a disease, without a diet, without a name, without a culture, without a past, without an identity, and become pure consciousness, now they're beginning to allow themselves to connect to this field of information. So it begs the question, how much of our waking day do we put our attention on the field or on energy, and how much of our waking day do we put our attention on objects and material matter? And for most people, all of their attention is on matter. So then it takes practice, it takes effort, it takes awareness to overcome yourself, to overcome your identity. And yet, our research shows that there's an elegant moment that we could actually predict on a brain scan in real time when a person's about ready to get beyond themselves. The moment they start disconnecting from their body and their environment and time and get beyond space and time, the brain starts to get highly organized because their awareness now is connecting to this field. And that field is a unified field. It's the very energy that unifies everything physical. It's all the forces of nature that has some effect in creating order in the three-dimensional reality. So it must be an intelligence, it must be a consciousness. So we teach people how to get to that place, and when they're in that place where they're nobody, no one, no thing, no where, and no time, then they have to then, as an awareness, connect to a frequency, to energy. And as they do that, they begin to feel more connected to something greater and less separate from everyone and everything. Our senses fool us into separation. There's me here and there's you there. There's me here and there's a plant there. There's me here and my dreams way over here. But in this place, when you start to connect, you start to notice.
You're doing that while you meditate, right?
During meditation, yeah. That people would say, well, I don't believe in the quantum field. I don't know, I've never experienced it. It doesn't exist. And I would say to them, well, if you don't have your attention on your nose, it doesn't exist for you either. But the moment you put your attention on your nose, it exists. It's always been there, but you didn't have any awareness on it. So the same thing applies to this field. So what happens is when people start to connect to this field, this unifying field, they start feeling more whole and less separate. In other words, they feel more connected and less lack. So they start feeling like they already have the very thing that they want. Now, when you're in a place called the quantum field where thought is real, and you feel like you already have what you're dreaming about or what your dreams are, then you don't have to try. You don't have to force. And creating from the field begins to produce changes in three-dimensional reality. Now, I'm at the point in my life, to be quite honest with you, where I'm waking up in my dream that I never thought when I started this journey that I would be witnessing some of the crazy and wonderful things that are happening for people in our community that have to do with instantaneous healings, where they're healing from blindness. Deaf people are hearing, tumors are disappearing, stage 4 cancers are going away, Parkinson's disease, Hashimoto's syndrome, very serious brain injuries and brain conditions reversed in a week-long event. And it would mean then, the closer they get to this unified field, then the shorter amount of time it should take for it to appear in their lives. And so, if it's happening in that amount of time, then the person is now creating from the field instead of from matter. And so we're starting to see mystical experiences that transcend language for people. People are healing from childhood scars that they didn't even know they had. They're creating new jobs, new relationships, new opportunities. Their dreams are coming true, and they're beginning to understand there's a science to the process of manifesting reality. And I'm happy to say that we're doing it, and that people are starting to do it.
How long did you need to learn that technique to get this connections to the field?
Well, a lot of trial and error, a lot of study, a lot of long hours in my attempt to connect. But I'm just the type of person, and I've always been this way, that I love to dovetail concepts. I love to unify principles. I like to connect the dots. And if the dots don't connect, I can't sleep. It just doesn't work for me. So for me, my interest at one point, when I had my own life change, was I started studying spontaneous remissions. People that were sick, and they were getting worse, or they were staying the same, and they were using all kinds of treatments, conventional and unconventional, and then all of a sudden they got better, like they just got better. So I wanted to know what the cause was that produced that effect, and although there were certain things that had to do with changes in lifestyle, matter to matter, the common things that they had that produced their significant changes had mostly to do with mind. And so that started my journey in demystifying the process. And when I found those...
How old have you been?
How old was I?
Yeah. How many years ago was it?
I was in my late 20s, early 30s, yeah. And then at that time, there wasn't a lot of people really challenging convention in that way. But when I had my own personal healing and started looking at all these people that were having healings, I couldn't go to the textbooks that were the basic mechanistic view of the way things happened, because the answers weren't there. So I had to look at the quantum model of reality, the mind-body connection, epigenetics, and what genes do, and genes make proteins, and proteins create structure and function in the body. And so I was juggling all these plates, I was spinning them all, trying to keep them all going, and trying to build this model of understanding back in the late 1980s and the early 1990s.
But was it the moment where you connected to the field and you really recognized, that's it, I found the solution to get contact to that energy, whatever it is exactly?
I wish it was like that. It wasn't really like that. I had moments of a lot of perseverance, a lot of effort, a lot of trying. And I learned a lot about surrender in the last 20 years or so, because surrender is trusting in an outcome. And when you're in the field, you don't have to try, because if you're in the field and you're trying, you're gonna have more reasons to try. It's this delicate balance between intention and surrender. Intention is getting clear on what you want when you're in the field, and surrender is letting go and allowing and trusting a greater mind to do it for you.
How does it feel when you close your eyes, you meditate, and you get this feeling of nowhere, time?
Yeah. There's degrees. And so let me finish the thought that when I started connecting, I had a lot of coherence, I had a lot of peace, my heart started opening, I felt this subtle form of connection and love, and then every now and then I would get the prize. Every now and then the door would open and my nervous system would become electric. And I don't have the words to describe it, except it was the most orderly, coherent, electric feeling that love would not be the word, because people think love is chemical. Love for your child, a love for your puppy, a love for your partner, love for your car, but this is not like that. That's coming from inside of you, and the moment you have this feeling, you know that there's some awareness that's greater than you that is doing it, or at least you're having the experience with. And you only need really one taste of that. And it's the sweetest wine you'll ever drink in your life. And then your whole life is about, how do I do that again? So you become less interested in all the preoccupations that happen outside of us. And so I think it's an evolution. So my experience now of my connection to the field, when I have those elegant moments, typically I usually am so awakened by that energy. It's so wonderful that I think to myself, there just can't be any more love to experience than that until the next experience. And then there's more. And all of a sudden, you're developing a relationship with this intelligence within you. You want to commune with it. You want to make time for it. You want to connect with it. Just like any relationship, you want to be present with it. You want to experience with it. You want to dream with it. You want to confide in it. You want to it begins to become a love affair. And people are beginning to understand that that is the resource that causes them to feel so whole that they no longer want anything. And I think that's a good place to be.
From different teachers in religions, there are different words using for maybe that power, like love, God, quantum field, inner voice, whatever. Is it all the same in your opinion?
Yeah, I think it's all the same. I have spoken at religious conferences, been invited, like to the Parliament of World Religions. And, I had an opportunity to present and then sit in on many different scholars and lectures. And I was always mystified by the arguments that take place right amongst every sect, whether it's Catholicism, whether it's yogis, whether it's Kabbalah, whether it's Vedic scriptures. There's always this kind of tension that's going on because they're searching for words that don't have the same meaning as they did 5,000 years ago. So we're trying to understand a word or a series of words that are not contemporary. And so it's difficult to explain that moment. You can only talk around it because I have had experiences that have taken me months to be able to put into words. And I don't even know who to talk to about it because no one would understand or believe it. And it's for you. It's a moment where you have to run it through your neural circuitry. You have to understand it. You have to review it. And it's so important to do that because I think that contemplation process actually sets us up for the next experience. And when that's on your mind all the time, instead of your finances or what's on television and who's the entertainer or what's politics, when you're not thinking about that, but you're preoccupied with this incredible moment, I think life gets really exciting. I think it changes for you.
I had the big luck that my father took me to a self-development seminar at the age of 15, and I had exactly that feeling you're describing, that one moment with a sweet wine. You never forget that moment and want to get it again and again and again. So that's the reason why I've done that for the last 18 years. What was your first contact with that, as you say, sweet wine? What was your reason or what was your beginning of your, let's call it spiritual path?
Well, I think that when we're children, many times we have this kind of inward experience. As a child, both my brother and I were really mystical, unusual kids. We loved to induce dreams. I mean, this is when we were 5 and 6 years old. I loved, as a child, to have a fever. I don't know why, because every time I had a fever, I would be super lucid. So I always looked forward to the fevers. I mean, I never wanted to take drugs or aspirin or anything. I just wanted everybody to leave me alone because that was my moment that I would have these very profound mystical experiences. And then I think we get layers of conditioning. We get busy, we start getting conditioned by advertisements and social consciousness, and everything changes. We get these layers placed on top of us, and those are beliefs. And I think the process of removing those layers is the work, so that, like a child, you can experience it. So I've had profound moments as a child that always kept me somewhat one foot in the scientific community, because I have a very analytical scientific mind, but by the same means I have this kind of experiential, that's not kind of the way it is. And that came from my own experiences. So I always questioned science, and many times when I make that connection, or many times I have that mystical moment, the first thing that happens to me, Alexander, is when I come back to my senses, the first thing I think every time is, I got this all wrong. This is what just happened is changing the way that I look at everything. And a layer is removed, a veil is removed, some conditioning is removed, and you start to see reality differently. And I think that that's a healthy process. So then moving another layer, all of a sudden you start to see what's always existed, or you didn't have the circuitry to perceive it at one point. Now, we don't see things how they are. We see things how we are. And so then an inner experience, and you've had some of these, that is so lucid. You're having a full-on sensory experience between your ears with your eyes closed that's more real than where we're sitting right now. So then, if your senses were heightened right now by 50% or 30%, everything you're seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, feeling, your awareness of everything around you would be heightened. Well, awareness is consciousness. And you can't have consciousness without energy. So you see this dramatic lifting of energy in the nervous system. And the experience then is so real that it captures all of the brain's attention. Now, experience enriches the brain. And the experience produces an emotion, but it's not like fear or pain or suffering. It's an elevated emotion, so it's less chemical, and it's more electromagnetic. It's more thrilling. It's more electric, and the electricity wakes you up. And when you're feeling that in your body, your body's getting a biological upgrade, and the body's receiving energy, and it's difficult to explain, but there's these little tiny microtubules in the cell, the skeletal structure of the cell, that are very sensitive to frequency. And when the door opens and the body starts receiving this frequency, those microtubules begin to shimmer and they begin to oscillate in a very coherent way. And they emit more light, more coherent light, and cells begin to communicate better. So then when you come back to your senses and you open your eyes, now you're going to be able to perceive a broader spectrum of reality because you have new circuits in place to perceive what's always existed, but you never had the circuits to perceive. So then you start seeing the hidden meaning behind all things. You start noticing things that you never noticed before. You start seeing the divine in the person instead of their face. You're seeing other things. And I think that we begin to wire our brain to wholeness, to divinity, to something else, something more supernatural. And you, again, it's difficult to talk about it unless you've had the experience. But when the door opens like that, the side effect is that people are less reliant on entertainment or things to bring them joy. There's this kind of exuberance. The body is in a state of joy or bliss or ecstasy. And no one or nothing is going to take it away from you. In fact, our research shows that oxytocin levels go up. Oxytocin signals nitric oxide. Nitric oxide signals another chemical that literally causes your heart to fill with blood. There's energy in this center. Your heart is full. It's blooming. A new consciousness. You're just like your sexual organs when they get aroused. The blood's going there, but it's going in a different place, and it feels incredible. And when that happens, you're more prone to give. You're more prone to be present. You're more prone to love, to take care of, to serve, to do your best to help somebody. I mean, that's who we are. That's who human beings are when they're not in survival.
I think we can all feel your passion for that, for these topics. How do you get your power, your need for the work you're doing? You're traveling all over the world. You're doing seminars day by day. I just have done a seminar a few weeks ago. You are meditating 4 nights long, 8 hours during the night. You're standing there in front of the group and meditating 8 hours for them, or you're showing them, or you
leading them. Yeah,
you're leading them 8 hours through the meditation the whole night. Where do you take all your power, your passion for your job?
Hey, Alexander, I think you're of the same mold as me. All the lost luggage, all the missed flights, all the late flights, all the long hours. I watched this woman on the stage in Vancouver just a week or two ago in our week-long event with Parkinson's disease. Little lady, sweet lady in her 70s. Before that event, she couldn't chew her food. She couldn't blow her nose. She couldn't stand up. She couldn't swallow. She had a rigid facial paralysis. One moment, just one moment of connection. She stood on the stage. She could chew her food now. She could swallow. She could blow her nose. She could stand up on her own. She went out and did the challenge activity. She didn't say, I have Parkinson's disease. I can't do this. That was not a voice that she listened to. that person is in a new future. She's in a new body. She's in a whole new dimension, a whole new reality. That person is what inspires me. That one person is enough. A lady in Brighton that has anaphylactic shock. Every single day of her life, as a very trained and educated psychotherapist, could help everybody else, but can't help herself. She wears a mask with ventilators because she's allergic to everything in her life. We have to put her on the second floor in the corner. We have to have the drugs in case she has anaphylactic reaction, which is a severe reaction where your tongue swells 3 times the size, your airways close down. And we're taking a chance, right, having her here at the event. Second day, she's off that balcony, she's on the floor, mask off, dancing with everybody completely free, hasn't had an anaphylactic reaction since. I mean, for me, I'll stand 8 hours for that. I'll stand 8 hours for a wait for a person to have that, because I believe, to answer your first question, I believe in possibility. And when you believe in yourself, you believe in possibility. And when you believe in possibility, you believe in yourself. I just want people. I don't care what it is. I don't care if they want health, wealth, a new job, a new relationship. I don't care. I just want them to know how to connect. I want them to know the formula on how to be present. And once they start getting what they want, all they want to do after that is give. They want to give back. So for me, it's my mission. And the cool thing about it, and you've witnessed this, is that once it starts in a week-long event, we get somebody on the stage and they start talking about their healing, then it just becomes contagious. And then we start seeing more and more miracles and more amazing things. And it's bigger than me. I'm just giving people the opportunity to connect, to get beyond themselves. And I'm open to what can happen. So I do it because of that.
You see hundreds, thousands of people. Do you see a difference from the people who succeed about the people you are just talking about, and people maybe who don't have the same success? Is there a difference in the mindset, or can you see any difference in that people?
That's a great question. Yes, I do. I think a lot of people spend a lot of time looking. You know, you do a meditation and you look for the results. And the moment you're looking, you're separate. Because now you're here and you want that, and so then you start waiting for it to happen. And when you're waiting, you're not creating. And the separation causes them to say, well, it hasn't happened, and I'm determining reality with my senses. And so they keep their dreams at arm's length. We're getting better at being able to explain how to do it. We're getting better at the formula and refining it. We're teaching people how to get so caught up in the act of doing whatever they're doing that they forget about looking, that the action becomes the experience. And it's that kind of presence, it's that kind of passion that allows the person who's no longer analyzing, no longer thinking, they're just all in, they're just going to go. And there's an element that I see that when we look at a brain scan, when a person has a profound moment, I'll say to them, what did you do to get there? Every single time they say, I just made up my mind. I just said I'm going to do this. I'm going to stop messing around. I'm going to stop thinking. I'm just going to follow the formula. I'm just going to do what you said. And the time people follow the formula and stop doing all the other things that's not part of the formula, it's just like a golf swing. It's just like a tennis swing. It's just like crocheting. It's just like the salsa. You stop doing everything else that's not part of the technique. And so there was a time when we would have a breakthrough, or we would see people having amazing experiences here and there. But now, it's a momentum, it's a movement. And after that second day, when people start getting beyond all their programs and their emotional addictions and the problems in their life and the people in their life, and I'm always on them, you know, like I keep bringing them back, you know, they have their experience, and let's refine it. What'd you do well? If you had another opportunity, how are you going to do it again? And all of a sudden you get this movement, and more people start following the formula. And then there's a shift in consciousness. And you've experienced that. In a week-long event, all of a sudden people start surrendering, and then everybody's moving. Everybody's having their joy, everybody's having their clarity, they're having their moments. And now they remember that every time they go in the meditation, if the experience doesn't happen, that meditation, they're still creating reality. And so then if you get people understanding they're still creating reality, it happened to you. It may not happen at the event. A week after the event, the doors open and you think, oh, all of that work was worth it.
What differs your work to other spiritual teachers, in my opinion, is that you don't go too much into the past. That means you really focus on the future, the life I really want to live. Maybe can you explain why you do it? And you work with mind movies, what mind movies are and what's the reason for using it?
Sure. I don't like to dwell on the past because most of the time people make up stories about the past that aren't even true. That's research. That memory is creative. So when a person is talking about their past or remembering their past, it's usually because they're feeling the emotion that keeps them connected to the past. So then you feel unhappy, you feel suffering, you feel discouraged, you feel fear. The moment you feel any of those emotions, your brain is going to create images equal to that emotion because that emotion is driving the brain's thoughts. So then the person's thinking in the past. So when they tell the story of the past, they're firing and wiring the same circuits and they're working themselves up into the same emotion and conditioning their body further into the past. And then you say, okay, it was your ex-husband. Let's take him and put him in a rocket and shoot him to the moon. Now what? What are you going to do now? You still got to change, right? The experience is done. And where's the past? Just embossed in the brain. But people are making up stories about their past, which means then they're reliving a miserable life they didn't even have, just to reaffirm their inability to change. So then I pay attention quite a bit to people, and I pay attention to people in our events as well. Every time a person overcomes a little part of themselves, overcomes a little bit more of the fear, even though it takes an effort, and even though it feels uncomfortable, and even though they feel like they're losing control and there's chaos, and they're pushing through and they're following the formula, and they make it. Every time they do that, there's a liberation of energy. And that is they start to love themselves a little bit more. That means they stop looking to the past and they start looking forward to the future. And dragging people out of the past into the present moment is the work. That's what takes a first day or 2 days of our event. So then once they overcome their past, they start falling in love with their future more than they're falling in love with their past.
They come into the present, but live in the future?
Yeah. So that's a great question. So I have 3 thoughts going on here, and let's close them up. So if a person understands that the brain is a record of the past, it's an artifact of everything you've learned and experienced to this moment. It's a memory bank. So then you wake up in the morning and you start thinking about your problems, and those problems are connected to certain people and certain things at certain times and places, and you believe that your thoughts have something to do with your destiny. The moment you're activating the memories in your brain, you're thinking in the past. And every single one of those memories, because you've experienced them, has an emotion connected to them. So then the next thing you know, the person starts feeling unhappy. They start feeling angry. They start feeling frustrated. They start feeling resentment. Thoughts are the language of the brain. Feelings are the language of the body. Their thoughts and feelings, their entire state of being is in the past. In the familiar past, they're going to crave the predictable future because they want to stay in the known, because God forbid something goes out of order. And the unknown is too scary for people. So that person then, every time they have the thought, the memory, and the memory produces a chemical, that's what conditioning is. So they're conditioning their body to literally be in the past. So then they're living in a past-present reality. So then how do we get people to live in a future-present reality? So then when they start overcoming their past and they're observing their thoughts, they're paying attention to how they speak, they're becoming aware of how they act, they're noticing how they're feeling. The act of becoming conscious of the unconscious self, which is 95% of most people, begins to objectify the subjective self, and they're pulling out of those programs. Uncomfortable, nobody likes to do it, they'd rather turn on the TV, they'd rather get on their cell phone, they'd rather surf the internet, distract themselves from that feeling, but not in our work, because we know then, if we keep teaching people how to get beyond their body, beyond their problems, beyond their identity, beyond the people, beyond the things and places, if they keep doing and applying the formula, there'll come a moment where they'll feel free. They'll be thinking a lot less about their problems and surrendering more into the present moment. Now, once we teach them how to be in the present moment, all possibilities in the quantum field exist in the present moment. So then, if I say to them, live in a future or begin to create a future, all of a sudden they say, what would it be like to be wealthy, to be healthy, to be free? When they ask that question, the brain starts working in different ways and the forebrain turns on, and all of a sudden you start getting these profound images. You're no longer looking at your future through the lens of the past. You're seeing possibilities you never saw before. The person who's passionate will start to feel the emotion of that experience before it happens. Clear intention, elevated emotion, thoughts and feelings create a state of being. They just move from their past-present reality or their past-present personality to a future-present personality. The stronger the emotion that they feel from that future event before it happens, the more they're going to pay attention to the picture in their mind. And in a sense, they're remembering their future. They're creating a long-term memory. And it's no different in the brain and the body than doing exactly the same thing of living in the past. So then, can you then do it enough times that it becomes a state of being? Now, the moment you lose the feeling of your future and you getting frustrated or angry, you just disconnected from the energy of your future and you're back to the energy of your past. And nothing unusual is going to happen. And if you say to me, well, it was because of that person or that thing, I would say to you, oh my goodness, you're back to the unconscious belief of being a victim, that something outside of you is controlling how you feel and think. So turning that battleship around takes quite a bit of effort. So then we use the mind movie technology because we like to have people start to construct the future. A lot of people say, I don't want to do the mind movies, I don't like doing it. I'm not good at technology. But the moment you sit down and you start doing it, you got to start knowing what you want, and all of a sudden it helps you to get clear on a vision.
I want to go into the detail what the mind movie is. What I experience is talking to people that many people know that they want better relationship, that they want more money, they want a job which is fulfilling and whatever, but they don't really know exactly what they want to live in the future.
Sure.
Do you make a similar experience, and why do you think mind movies are the solution?
So the mind movie technology is to simulate exactly what you do when you watch television. You watch some stupid mindless show or some dumb commercial that's telling you as you age your immune system's getting weaker or you need a flu shot or whatever. And people are in trance. Their brain is in a state of trance. The analytical mind is suppressed. The door between the conscious mind and the subconscious mind is wide open. Their brain waves are slowing down. They're suggestible to information. They accept, they believe, they surrender to information without analyzing it to be the truth. And they're programming their subconscious into relying on something outside of them. So the mind movie technology is to do the exact same thing, but instead of programming you into a limited state, if you understand how to induce trance, let's teach people then how to program their subconscious into a more unlimited state. So we put a song with the mind movies so that it creates a little passion, right?
To explain it for the people who don't know what a mind movie is,
okay.
It's a software where you produce your own film with photos, with your own videos, which shows your own future you want to live.
Right, it's a personalized movie where you're the star in the movie, where you can put videos or images, and that with every image, you put a little line, just like when they say, as you age, your immune system is getting weaker and weak. They put that right on the television. So as I age, my immune system gets stronger and stronger and stronger. If you're in the state of suggestibility, all of a sudden now you're programming your subconscious to something differently, right? So then the person has to be in trance. We use a song because the technology requires a song, and it gets people inspired. And so then if they're watching that mind movie over and over again, sooner or later they're going to start mapping it neurologically in their brain. And when the music changes, they know the scene's going to change, and they're anticipating the next picture. And now they're beginning to program it subconsciously. So then the more they observe the movie, and just like when you listen to a song on the radio that reminds you of a time in your life with certain people when you were in college or certain places, that's called an associative memory. When the music starts changing and you start hearing that music, you're automatically going to have images pop up in your mind, and you're programming yourself subconsciously. You're remembering a future. And so the mind movie technology is a great way for people to get clear on what they want. Now, I always tell our audiences that the details, like you have an intention, you want a job, you want to make more money, you know what that is. You want to work with cool people, you want to make a difference in the world, you want to have time to play, whatever it is, right? People have to get clear on that. So when they see the image in their mind movie, they should know what that image means, right? The more they understand what that image means, the more they start getting closer to it. So then how it happens, Alexander, and the way it happens is none of your business. In fact, if you're trying to predict how it's going to happen, you're back to the Newtonian model of reality. The quantum is the unpredictable. You just got to be open to possibilities. And so when you get a call out of nowhere, or you meet somebody and it leads to something else, and the next thing you know, the person's got a new job, all these kind of opportunities and synchronicities happen. They're before they go to bed at night, instead of watching the news, which is really a lack of journalism these days, they watch their mind movies. It's the last thought they have before they go to bed, because they know they can program their subconscious.
Dr. Joe, I need to get a bit serious at that point. I've been doing that for 2 years right now. I think it's the third mind movie I produced from our own. I'm using it at your meditations, at your seminars. I'm using it at home, and I think it's a bit dangerous what happened there, because you really need to know that what you produce in that mind movies,
you better be ready.
You need to be ready for that.
You better be ready.
And it really can happen. I have some amazing stuff I put into that videos, and step by step, all these things happen. For example, I think it was 1.5 years ago, we asked the question for Gedankentanken, who would be the greatest speaker on a Gedankentanken stage? And we said, okay, I think for a Gedankentanken stage, this could be Barack Obama. I think he's an amazing leader, he has charisma. I think he's one of the great persons we had the last centuries. And I put it again into a mind movie just 8 weeks ago on the seminar where we meditated 4 nights, 8 hours per night. And my idea was to creating that event with Barack Obama maybe in 2020 or something. And what's happening right now is really, it's getting me a bit nervous because he's coming in 6 weeks to a Gedankentanken event, and he's holding a speech for us. He's making a conversation with us on an event. It's just happening.
You are the living example of truth, my friend, because you were suggestible to possibility, and the quantum field organized the event in a way that's right for you. People that I know are on their 3rd mind movie, their 4th mind movie, because everything's happened. Now, I have taught my brain, and I've talked about this in some of the events that you've attended. When I open my eyes after a meditation, I have trained my brain that if I connect to that field of information, when I come back to my senses, I am not in the same reality. Just like you lean into a mirror like this in a bathroom, and there's 2 mirrors, and you look like that, and you see those infinite number of dimensions. That's exactly how reality is. You come back to your senses, you connect to the field, and you just moved over into one of those other bathrooms. Looks just like this one. Everybody's the same, your parents are the same, all your coworkers are the same, all your friends are the same, but something is different. Now, You get really good at this, you move over many different potential boxes. And you are in a new reality. You are in a new dimension where that reality is actually occurring, and you're waking up in the very dream that you created. And it's exactly how it should happen. And listen, my mind movies are all about our community. I don't have a mind movie for Joe Dispenza. I don't need anything. I don't really care about anything. What I care about is having a movement, and that our students get it, and that we're making scientific history, and that we're people are healing, you know, and people are having profound moments like this. We get enough people, Alexander, doing that. There's a huge footprint in the quantum field, and at the same time, by you speaking it, evidence is the loudest voice now. It's not philosophy, it's not information, it's evidence. Now people want to see it. And so by you just speaking that, how many people do you think are going to go, I want to do that? I want to create something as magical as that. Now, nobody is so special to be excluded from that very experience that you had. Now, I want to have a very poignant message here, because you're a sincere student. You're a sincere person in this work. You give it everything you have. You understand that you have to overcome the old self and to create a new self. You understand it's not about the fact that Barack Obama is coming. It's who you became that allowed him to come. That's what matters to you. So people think it's about their healing, it's about their wealth, their success, but it's who they become in the process. And as they overcome, they become. And so you put in a lot of time in our advanced follow-up in Berlin just last month. We pushed people into that place where they could have lucid moments. We had them doing their mind movies. We had them doing all that stuff. And you get a person in that state where they're happy and they're half awake and they're half asleep and they no longer care. They're not trying anymore. I'm just going to do what you tell me to do, and I'm not going to expect anything. That is the perfect moment for the divine or the quantum to slip in. I don't care what you call it. It's an invisible energy that has intelligence, that is self-organizing, and if you begin to connect to it, you're swimming upstream. It's going to organize all this down here in three-dimensional reality, and the closer you get to it, the shorter amount of time it takes to appear in your life. So it's a testament to your connection to the field.
On Monday, there's another week-long advanced workshop you're doing in Bonn with about 1,000 people.
1,350 or so, yeah.
1,350 people, and 20 of them are employees from Gedankentanken. 1/3 of our company is taking part of that event, a meditation retreat for 1 week. What do you think happens afterwards? Is there a warning you want to say right now to me?
I think that those people will come back more heart-centered. I think they'll come back with new ideas. I think they'll have an interest in collaboration, in connection, in community, in cooperation, in teamwork. I think that they'll smooth out some of the edges of their personality, their impatience, their frustration, their judgment. We'll cull that out of them. We'll help them to get beyond those things. They'll come back with a new energy, an interest in contributing, a purpose or a mission bigger than them. And they'll come back really, really excited, really inspired. So I just about guarantee that.
How do you look into the future? We have tremendous changes in the world. We have wars. We have leaders in the world which maybe don't work like Barack Obama in the past. How do you look into the future? Is it a positive or a dangerous future you're looking to?
I am optimistic about the future, but I'm also a pragmatist and a realist. I keep 1 foot in the quantum world and 1 foot in the real world, and I think that's super healthy. So we're in this age where so many paradigms are beginning to collapse because of information. The political model, the economic model, the leadership model, the environment, the religious model, the educational model, the journalism, medicine, everything is beginning to collapse because it's an old model that's built on selfishness. And because of information, there's a chaos. There's a disorder that's created because information that's being released creates chaos. It's novelty, it's newness every moment, and it's very difficult to predict. So we could say then that chaos is unpredictable order. And we're in a very, very important time where all these systems are breaking down. Now, we should never see the collapse of these systems as something bad, because how else is something new going to come out unless we have a collapse of what isn't working any longer? Now, here's the caveat, though. I think that if people react with anger, with hostility, with frustration, with prejudice, with judgment, now they're adding to the same consciousness that needs to break down. So if you teach people then how to lead by example, not by telling people you need to do this or you need to do that, but leading by example, applying the formula where you lead with your heart, that we are a living organism. Human beings, we're a species. And the living organism has to practice taking care of one another. They have to practice educating one another, informing one another, serving one another, healing one another, shining for one another so that others can shine. That's what the living organism does. It creates that kind of cohesiveness and community. So we could say then, everything that we're receiving in terms of information is actually creating separation. Those emotions that when you watch TV and you see war and you see deceit and you see pain and suffering and creates fear and prejudice, all of those survival emotions cause you to contract and create separation. And we actually have to reverse that we have to teach people how to self-regulate in the midst of all of that chaos and begin to lead by example. So if I'm taking care of my anger and frustration and you're taking care of your fear and anxiety and judgment, then sooner or later we're going to meet somewhere at a greater level of awareness, right? So I think that this is an important time in history that everybody begins to work on themselves so that we all lead. And if we all lead, we're like those birds that are all moving as one flock, the fish that are moving in the school. When you study that phenomenon, you think that there's some leader that everybody's following, that it's a top-down phenomenon. Turns out it's not. It's actually a bottom-up phenomenon. Nobody's leading except everybody's leading. They're one mind, they're one heart. And they have the appearance of a larger organism. They have an appearance of something bigger, right? And so we can't wait for leadership. We just can't. Well, the systems are going to collapse because they can't sustain themselves in this state. There's something else that has to happen. And so we don't try to fix this, because that's a lot of energy. We just create something better. And the culture moves from there to there. And I'm very optimistic that a greater level of consciousness is happening. And a greater level of consciousness will resolve the problems that were created from a limited level of consciousness. And do I think things are going to get worse before they get better? Yes. I think people have to become so uncomfortable that they cannot go back to business as usual, where they can't turn on the TV and watch a sitcom or a football game, that's not going to take away their discomfort, that now there's a motion to act. And when we get to that point of discomfort, then human beings will come together, and they'll come together, and we're innately wired to take care of one another, and we'll see something great happen.
There are people out there, maybe I'm one of them, who have difficulties to integrate meditation, time for themselves in daily life. Do you have any recommendation for these people? How do you integrate, for example, you are very busy as well, how do you integrate meditation in your daily program?
Wake up earlier. And if you tell me you're tired, go to bed earlier. How bad do you want it? I mean, I have a relationship.
When do you go to bed?
It depends on where I am. I don't sleep a lot. I mean, I sleep, 4 or 5 hours a night. But it's important for me to start my day, no matter what happened the day before, with time for the divine, time to have my relationship with the divine.
How long?
Wow. I allow for a couple hours. That's my time. But you don't have to do
A couple of hours meditation every morning when you wake up.
Yeah. Yeah, I allow for 2 hours. Some days are easier, I connect, and it's easy. Other days I have to work a little harder. But if I allow for 2 hours, Alexander, I feel like I have enough time. If I allow for 1 hour and I can't get beyond myself, then 1 hour is not enough. But 2 hours is enough time for me to just go, this is my time. Now, for me, I'm a busy person. I have flights, I have interviews, I have staff meetings, I have emails, I have contracts, I have coordinators, I have events, PowerPoints, technology, new staff, new government rules. I mean, I'm busy. And if I don't make time for myself, then my environment is going to control how I feel and how I think. But if I start my day in getting my brain and body right, and if I say 1 hour, I just know that my ego will say, you don't have enough time. But if I say 2 hours, and I'm working to get beyond myself, I know I have enough time to get beyond myself. So other people, their life isn't as busy, but it doesn't matter to me. It really doesn't matter.
How do you connect? When I make meditation, I have a guided tour with, for example, Dr. Joe Dispenza. Are you listening to your own voice?
No. I've done it so many times. I just go through the process. I go through the process, and that's where we're going to. I would like for one day when we're advanced enough to give the people the instructions on what to do. There'll be a little bell for them to go to the next thing. I speak less, and they're their own inner voice. They're their own inner guidance. They're at that point where they can do it. We're going there in the future. And right now, we have people at different levels. Like our event in Brighton, our week-long event in Brighton, we had people that never even watched the preliminary online course and came to a week-long event because they said, hey, I meditated for 40 years. And I was saying to them,
I heard about it, and you really get angry in front of the crowd.
I didn't get angry. I did not get angry. I called everybody into the room and I said, listen, we got to go. There's a future. There are people that need to be healed in this room, and you're holding them up because you didn't. The name of the event was called the initiation, the test. Initiating knowledge into experience. And you came to the event without studying and preparing for the test. So you have no idea what I'm talking about because you don't have the circuitry in place to understand. And I said, you do what you can to get it right because we can't wait for you any longer. We got to go. And then bodies were healed. 4 people with the same health condition the next day were healed. People with Parkinson's disease, healed. People with all kinds of health conditions. A blind person from a stroke is now seeing. It just took me a moment to just get very clear with them. I wasn't angry. I was very clear and gentle with them, but very firm. We got to go. And so people are at different stations, at different points. But if I can work with them the first couple days, it all begins to become one, right? And then we get everybody moving together because I don't want to move a group of people and leave other people behind. I'll wait and I'll find out another way to say it. I'll figure out another way to reach them so that more and more people join. So you start seeing these people move, and then you see certain people holding on to their past. They do their meditation and they come out of their meditation and they're complaining and they're making excuses and they're angry. You just went back to your old self. You're in the monastery. You can't do that. You're creating reality here. You're becoming something else. So then we go back and we get a little more information, remind them again, more people move. And then all of a sudden, then there's few people left and they're the only one complaining and nobody else is complaining. And now they're looking around going, hey, no one else is complaining. I'm the only one complaining. I'm going because the community's changed, right? So I don't know. I think that I have a true love for the divine. I have a true love for our community. I'm so proud of the people in this work because they do the work. And they do it because when they stop doing it, the magic disappears. And it's not like, oh, geez, I have to go meditate. It's more like, I want to keep the magic going. There's all kinds of unpredictable, unusual synchronicities and serendipities and coincidences and opportunities. I want to stay in that energy. I want to keep going. I want to stay connected. So then it gets fun, and it's no longer work. And I think we're wired to create. I just think that getting beyond yourself is the work.
Next to your best-selling books and your seminars, there's a very easy way to get the first deeper introduction into your work. What is that about?
Well, we offer an online course called Redesigning Your Destiny. That's a great way for people to get an introduction. If people want to come to our week-long events, and the problem with our week-long events, we just advertised Mallorca this week, and 1,150 people registered in less than 24 hours. So it's a problem that we have to figure out here, because they go very quickly. But if they want to come to a week-long event...
So to say it easy, all seminars over the year always sold out, right? So you have more than 10,000 people joining your 1 week advanced workshops, right?
No.
1 week...
Our events run about 1,100 to 1,200 to 1,300 to 1,400, but they sell out very quickly. But if you want to come to a week-long, you have to do the online progressive, which is a home study course, and there's an intensive that we give with that. And that gives people the basics on how to practice certain meditations, to understand brain coherence, heart coherence, to understand the field, to understand neuroscience, to understand the language. There's meditations that they can practice. That prepares them to come to the week-long. And it's a 9-week course, but you can do it in 1 day or 2 days if you want to sit and watch the whole thing. And we don't have a specific way that we want you to do it, but it's important for people to get an introduction. And sometimes I think that people process information differently. So by seeing it and listening to it is better than reading it at times. And we covered a lot of content there.
Yeah.
So my ultimate goal is to have people come to the week-long, because that, as you know, that's where the magic happens. You were in Toronto, you saw it.
Yeah, great. So you have the chance to order that online course to get a very good introduction into the work of Dr. Joe on the video. Dr. Joe, what is your vision of your future?
Gosh, let's see. I'm living in a future where there's a new normal, that people know how to self-regulate, keep their hearts open, to make a difference in the world, that we invent really wonderful things that resolves the problems in the environment, that resolves the problems with the economy, that new systems are put into place, that healing is a normal occurrence in our work. We are healing other people, as you've seen, really well. I want to be able to get really, really good at it. We actually are working with a university right now in the United States, MIT, which is a Massachusetts Institute of Technology, and we have a couple really fine researchers that are looking at studying our coherence healing, where we're practicing healing other people, to get the statistics down. And when we're at 50%, when a person, 50% of the people that are having the experience get healed, we will go into children's hospitals, as you know, and we will ask for those children. We'll show them the research. We want no money. All we want to do is help these little people heal. And we actually, in Vancouver, had our first 2 children show up because people heard about it, and one sweet, sweet little girl with a brain tumor had a profound experience. And there's just a very thin veil there. So we want to help. We want to help people, we want to heal children. So that's a future that I'd love to create. I want us to be able to demonstrate this with our eyes open as well as our eyes closed. In other words, when it comes time to heal, you don't say, well, give me a minute, I need to get beyond myself, I got to close my eyes, can you play some music? I just want us to be so good that we just walk up and we know how to do it. So I want to be able to consistently see people create objects out of nothing. I want them to know that they're dimensional beings living a dimensional life, that the lucid and the dimensional is just so much more common for people. that they rely less on their outer world to bring them joy or change them, and they understand how to do it from within. That there's a movement, a new consciousness, and I'm a small part of that. I think there are many people around the world that are doing their job as well, and hopefully these little pockets that are popping up around the world begins to create a very strong change in the electromagnetic signature of this planet, where violence goes down, war goes down, prosperity goes up, joy and true brotherhood and sisterhood bond the living organism, and we're open to all kinds of possibilities that have to do with this small, tiny little planet that's sitting on the edge of the Milky Way. That space is so big and there's so many potentials out there that we are on a daily basis questioning what else is possible.
I wish you all the best creating all that future.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for that interview. Thank you, Dr. Joe.
You're welcome, Alexander.